Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I present a project at the International Conference on Smart Technologies of Urban Engineering on the topic Efficiency of Green Logistic Technologies in Multimodal Transportation of Dangerous Goods. Authors Denis, Lomotko, Oleksandr, Dmytro, Kozodoi, Vitalii, Barbashyn, and I, speaker Mykola, Lomotko. We present Ukrainian State University of Railway Transport and Beketov National University of Urban Economy in Kharkiv. Next slide. The image of green logistics is a concept of ecologically rationally designing and operation of logistic systems refers on the methodology of sustainable economic development. According to accept transport accounts of about 80% of all carbon pollution of atmospheric air, and the planet therefore in introduce of green technologies in logistic activities will make it possible to take certain steps to preserve the climate on the planet. It is regard research and development of technologies of multimodal transportation of dangerous goods are relevant. At automodal transport except affecting the atmosphere air carries out contamination soil, water resources, exotic pollution of the environment and has a high probability of significant negative consequences as a result of road accident during the transport of dangerous goods. Therefore, a strategic direction for the development of green logistics in the transport of dangerous goods is refusal or reduction of the share of transport in favor of more environmentally rail transport. Next slide. The purpose of the article is a brief analysis of the state of container and piggyback transportation of dangerous goods, consideration of the advantages and disadvantages of operating various types of transport and the impact on environmental safety. The task green logistics reduce the negative impact of transport on the environment is the integration of various modes of transport, the implementation of the interaction with minimal involvement on automobile transport. Next slide. Effective measures that will allow the development and strengthening of container and piggyback transportation of goods include improving the legislative acts on multimodal transport and combined transport. Further development on the network of logistics centers, differentiation of freight and passenger traffic, introduction of special environment tariffs, and financial and economic support from the state. Next slide. According to the state statistics source of Ukraine, emission of pollution into the air from road transport in 2080s amounted to 158.4 thousand tons. Railway transport only 27.6 thousand tons. That is relative excess of emissions from automobile transport is 39 times. Next slide. Long-term studies of leading scientists is the work, the result of which were published by the Intergovernmental Commission on Climate Change in the report in 2080, shows that is the period from 1970 to 2010, emissions of such modes of transport as road transport, international aviation, domestic aviation, international and coastal shipping are showing a steady upward trend as it's shown in figure on your slide. Next slide. Taking into account the requirements set out earlier and the ecological critical for assessing transport risk in general is proposed. With this calculation is the amount of additional damage from the negative impact of the vehicle and its cargo on the environment. This formula showed on the slide. Next slide. A diagram of the organization on connotation, unimodal and multimodal transportation of goods is shown in the figure. In case of unimodal transportation, it is considered that the inert route distance, LPR, is realized by one mode of transport. In case of multimodal transportation, the road distance consists of the initial sections with the participation of road transport, LA1, the main transportation, L3M, by rail transport, water transport, and the final section, the delivery by road transport, LA2. At the terminals, the interaction of modes of transport is implemented. A cargo unit container. The reloaded and shunting work is performed with a duration of key terms. Further, it's assumed that it will be 1 hour at each turns on the train route. Next slide. We can see special emissions of exhaust gases presented on this slide. Next slide. Estimation of the amount of harmful emissions into the environment during the transportation of contents with dangerous goods by various methods and modes of transport. GGTEU presented on this slide too. Next slide. Also, we can see comparison of the specific pollution effect on the environment when transporting a 20-foot container TEU with dangerous goods by various modes of transport, and comparison of the specific environmental impact of the transport of a 20-foot container TEU with dangerous goods. Next slide. In conclusions, the introduction of green logistic technologies in general when using container and piggyback transportation of dangerous goods makes it possible to highlight the following promising areas of activity. Investing in the development and construction of new logistic and multimodal centers will improve the efficiency of logistic operation and indicators of transportation of dangerous goods. Introduction of specialized technologies in warehouses for the purpose of rational organization of warehouses logistics. As a result, there will be a reduction in storage areas and energy consumption and increase in the safety indicators when performing cargo operation with dangerous goods. Development of the transport system include transport engineering, construction and new roads, optimization of route of transportation dangerous goods in order to reduce emissions to harmful gases. Reducing the share of unimodal road transport, replacing them with multimodal ones with the participate of rail, sea, and river modes of transport, makes it possible to increase environmental friendliness when transportation big number of dangerous goods. This reduces the number of flying during transportation and reduces the harmful impact on the environment. Informing consumers about the environmental direction of the carriers and multimodal operators activities by labeling the packaging with special things, increasing the importance of the environment impact on the quality of life of consumer and the market stability of the carriers during the implementation of activities. Development and stimulation of waste processing, reduction of tariffs for the disposal residues of container and packaging. Development of container transport providing for the minimization of packaging. Next slide. I am very glad to address you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that our report was interesting and informative for you. Peace to Ukraine and glory of Ukraine. And next slide, it's now our head of work. And the next slide. Thank you very much. If you have a question, I will listen to you.
Thank you, presenter, for a very interesting presentation. So, is anyone has a questions for the presenter?
One moment, I can switch on my camera. You switch on my camera. is organizer. I can't switch. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is anyone, okay, we have one question. You can ask.
Mykola, huge thanks for your report. It's really very interesting, and I want to ask you about the following. What green logistic principles exactly you implement in your researching?
Okay, it's a good questions. We use the logistic, for example, we use the package transport. We have a lot of kinds of transport, for example, water transport, air transport, train transport, railroad, and automobile transport. It's this part. It's very important part of our work, and we discover, we research of this part, how this pollution, impact of this part. For example, dangerous goods with railroad, dangerous goods with automobile, and so on. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answer. So we have one more question.
I have one short question. Could you please tell in what way you collected the data that you analyzed in your article?
Okay, it's a good questions. We have a lot of researchers. For example, we have Ukrainian state statistics source of Ukraine. It's a very good site for statistic information. For example, we have foreign researchers. For example, researchers in 1970s to 2010. I say about these researchers. And pollutions, of kind of pollutions, and how impact this pollution in rail transport, automobile transport, sea transport, and so on.
Okay, thank you very much.